Welcome to the Self-Belief Podcast, the show that we shift your self-belief in, because self-belief shifting shifts everything. I want to share with you my continued writing prompts, because this is one of the simplest ways I know to understand yourself when talking and thinking haven't helped. Continued writing is exactly what it sounds like. You write without stopping. You don't plan it. You don't think about what should come next. You just keep writing whatever comes out. And the reason this matters is because most of the time you're reacting before you've had a chance to think. Your body responds, your brain protects you. And later you're left wondering why you said yes, or snapped, shut down, or felt overwhelmed. Continued writing gives you time to slow down that reaction, time to see what's actually happening underneath it. It works because you don't stop to edit what you say to yourself. You don't pause to explain, and you don't make it sound right. You just keep writing. Because this time is just for you. Nobody else gets to see what you write. It's for your awareness and growth only. And in that space, your brain finally gets room to pause. Not to be told what to think, not to be encouraged, but to slow down enough for what's really there to come through. And that's when you start to notice your automatic reactions, the patterns you didn't realize you were repeating, the beliefs that have been quietly running in the background. That's also when evidence begins to appear. Evidence that what your brain is telling you might not be true anymore. Evidence that you still have a choice. There's a reason why I love continued writing. I love it because it supports you in those moments when your brain just feels so busy, defensive, or stuck, and you just don't actually know why you're reacting in a particular way. If you're someone who thinks a lot but still feels stuck, this creates space without pressure. And if you're someone who reacts rather than thinks, this gives you time to notice and become more aware. You'll find continued writing in my book, inside my membership, and available on my website. And the links are down below. That feeling where you don't know what's wrong, you just know it doesn't feel very good? Welcome back to the Self-Belief Podcast. I'm Jenny Field, your self-belief expert from Just Being Me. There was a time when I woke up feeling something was wrong. I woke up tired. Not always physically tired, more like braced for the day. Kind of preparing myself before it had even properly begun. There was a sense of effort waiting ahead, even if nothing particularly difficult was planned. I got on with what needed doing. I responded to messages. I helped. I showed up. I kept things moving. And because this had been my normal for such a long time, I didn't question it. I wouldn't have said I felt unhappy. I couldn't have said that I felt bad. What I knew was that everything felt heavy. That certain conversations left me drained in a way I just couldn't quite explain. That I replayed things I'd said, and I just wondered if I'd come across wrong. I felt flat, even when on the surface, my life looked fine. It had become so familiar to me that I barely registered it as a problem. It was just how life felt. And it certainly wasn't what other people saw, because they saw me being confident, happy and strong. Because showing them anything felt different felt like I was failing. These patterns ran for so long that they stopped even being visible to me. They just became like the background noise of my everyday life. I didn't notice them because they weren't new. I didn't question them because they kept things functioning. For many people, those patterns include keeping the peace, explaining yourself, putting other people first, adapting quickly to what is needed. Not because you consciously choose that way of living, because somewhere along the line you learned that your needs or reactions caused friction. And over time, something very subtle happens. Your power is handed over to them very quietly, not all at once, just moment by moment, to other people's moods, to other people's comfort, to whatever keeps things calm and predictable. And in real life, this doesn't look dramatic. It looks like noticing when somebody is in a bad mood and changing how you speak, sensing tension and softening your opinion, anticipating what might upset someone and avoiding it before it even happens. You do these things not because you want to, but because it feels easier than dealing with the reaction if you don't. You begin scanning situations automatically, without even thinking. Who needs what? What's expected? What will keep things running smoothly? And without realising it, those signals start to matter more than your own. You might feel uncomfortable, tired, or irritated, but those feelings get pushed aside because responding to other people feels more urgent. Over time, your system learns something very specific, and that's peace comes from managing others, that safety comes from adapting, that your role is to adjust rather than to decide. And none of this feels dramatic. It feels sensible, responsible, even grown up. But the consequence is that your choices slowly stop feeling like choices. You don't even pause to notice what you want because it doesn't feel relevant anymore. You focus on what's needed, what will avoid the tension, what will keep things steady. So when someone suggests you could do things differently, it can feel confusing or even frustrating. Not because you don't want to change, but because from the inside, it doesn't look like there is a choice. It looks like responsibility, obligation, reality. And almost immediately, your mind starts explaining why change isn't possible. I can't because of work. I can't because of money. I can't because of other people. I can't because now's just not the right time. And those explanations arrive really fast. So fast that they feel factual, not defensive. It's not about stubbornness. It's about protection. Because the brain's priority is safety, not happiness. Safety means familiarity, predictability, low risk. When certain behaviours once helped you to avoid conflict, criticism, or rejection, your brain stored them as reliable. So when the idea of change appears, even gently, your brain scans for uncertainty. Uncertainty feels risky. And the fastest way to reduce that risk is to shut the idea down. Justifying why something can't change and placing sensible sounding blocks in the way does exactly that. That's why your explanations feel so solid, because they've been used before. They keep the things as they are. And staying as you are, even when it doesn't feel good, often feels safer than stepping into something unknown. And because this all happens quietly and quickly, it doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like being sensible, like being realistic, just getting on with things. This same process runs underneath so many everyday moments. You explain yourself before anyone asks. You say yes before you've had a moment to notice what you want. You keep going when you're tired, and you tell yourself it's just how life is. Afterwards, there might be a little flicker of irritation or heaviness, but even that gets explained away. I'm just tired. It's been a long week. It's nothing. Over time, this becomes self-reinforcing. The more you justify why things can't change, the more true it feels that they can't. That's why so many people don't recognise these patterns at first. There's no obvious crisis, no single moment to point to. Just a gradual narrowing of what feels possible. For me, the shift didn't start with understanding any of this. It started much smaller. I noticed that the moment I woke up, my mind was already listing what needed doing and what could go wrong. And underneath that was something heavier. A quiet habit of putting other people first in my mind before the day had even begun. Before I'd had a moment to notice what I wanted, my attention had already left me. I was scanning, preparing, getting ready to respond. That heaviness wasn't random. It was the feeling of putting myself second before the day had even started. So instead of arguing with it or trying to fix it, I tried something simple. When I first woke up, I told myself, I am amazing. Not because I fully believed it, because believe me, I didn't, but because it interrupted what usually came next. That one sentence changed the order of my attention. It stopped my energy going outward immediately. It brought me back to myself before the checking began. I also started telling myself, today is a good day. Not as a promise and not as pressure, just as a different starting point. A way of setting the tone before my brain moved into protection mode. That wasn't about pretending everything was fine. It was about changing the order. Me first, then the day. Those moments didn't change my life overnight, but they did something important. They created a pause. And in that pause, something practical starts to shift. You notice what you're feeling without immediately justifying it, without pushing it aside, without explaining why it makes sense to carry on as normal. You simply notice. And that is often the first time you realise how much you've been managing, adapting, or overriding yourself without even knowing it. Awareness doesn't begin with analysis. It begins with noticing that something doesn't feel right and not immediately talking yourself out of it. The tightness after certain conversations, the exhaustion that doesn't match what you've done, the sense of effort that never quite fits. That noticing doesn't demand action. It doesn't require answers. It simply creates space. And awareness? That slowly and steadily is where things will begin to shift. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next episode. Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to know more, you can find all the links down below. Oh, and don't forget to press subscribe so you can catch the next one. See you soon.